soils can be found in different places, and differences in soils affect how the plants in them grow. So soil could be made of sand, and here we have some sandy silt. Silt is the next smaller size down from sand. You see how that looks sort of like beach sand, but maybe just a little bit smaller. And then the next smaller size below silt is clay-sized grains. Now there are some clumps in here, but you can break them up and they're sort of powdery. And clay, if you mix some water with it, which we are about to do, you can make mud. So here is some clay silt, like what's in there, just a little bit more moist. I'm gonna put some in a container, add a little bit of water, and we'll make some mud out of the clay. If you added water to the sand, it wouldn't make mud. Okay, let me see if that's enough water to turn this into mud. And just a little bit more. All right, so we've got some mud now. So these clay-sized grains are too small to be seen without a magnifier. Another thing we can have in the soil is organic matter, and that organic matter could be dead plants, like those leaves. It could be dead animals, like insects. And right here, I went and collected some dead bugs to show you. I found these in some spider webs. So we've got a ladybug, an ant, a mosquito, some things that look like tiny flies or gnats. And organic matter can make very rich, dark soil. This is some potting soil, very similar to natural humus, which has a lot of organic content. The white stuff in here, the people that sold the potting soil have added that, so pretend that's not there. Most plants will grow best in soil that is a mixture of sand, silt, clay, and organic matter. We call the mixture of sand, silt, and clay loam. And here is some silty clay loam. Loam just means a mixture of sand, silt, and clay. So if you have those three things mixed together with organic matter, like dead bugs and dead leaves, then you have real good soil for plants. Now, in the mountains of North Carolina, there's a lot of loam, the stuff made of sand, silt, and clay. In the Piedmont, like around Raleigh and Charlotte, you have a lot of clay soil. In the coastal plain, there's a lot of sand and organic matter in the soil. So now we're going to do an activity to see how well the different soils hold water, hold nutrients that they need in order to grow plants well and to hold up the plants. So we're going to start with water holding. How well does the soil hold water? So we've got our sandy silt here and our clayey silt here. Do you think sand or clay is going to hold water better? I want you to make a prediction right now. You can either think it in your mind or say it out loud. Which will hold water the longest and which will hold more water? The sand or the clay? Okay, now that you've got that idea in your mind, we are going to do a little experiment to test your prediction. So you're going to need to, if you want to do this at home, you're going to need to get some sand. I've got sandy silt, but you can get just plain sand. You might find some in a sandbox. And you're going to need some clay. So you'll also need a couple of jars and either sieves to put over the jar, although this sieve is so big and that jar has such a small opening, it would fall off. So I'm using funnels. So you could use funnels, or you could use sieves, or you could use colanders. You will also need coffee filters, because you'll put a coffee filter in each one of your funnels or sieves. So if you want to go get that stuff now, then you should pause the video while you go get the sand, the clay, the jars, and the funnels or sieves, and your coffee filters, and then start it back up when you're ready. All right, if you've got your supplies, let's make sure they're set up like this. You've got your jar, you've got your funnel or sieve over the jar with a coffee filter in it, and there are two setups, one for the sand, one for the clay. Now we're going to put the soil in. I'm going to put some in, and then I'm going to show you how much is in it. So what I'm doing here is I'm spreading out this. I want the water to go through the soil, not through the paper of the coffee filter. So I have made a low place in the middle, and I've spread it out up the sides a little bit. And pour in some soil. I'm going to make sure this liner, this coffee filter, is spread out well. Then I'm going to make a low place in the middle and spread the soil up the sides of the coffee filter a little bit, so that when I pour the water through, it goes through the soil, not just through the paper part. Okay, that looks like it's ready. So I've got a measuring cup here that measures a 1/4 cup. And it's important for you to try to put about the same amount in each one. You don't have to measure exactly if you don't want to, but just put a small amount, the same amount of water in each one. So that's a 1/4 cup measuring cup. I'm going to fill it about half full. I'm going to get 1/8 of a cup. 1/4 cup is going to take a long time to pour through. So I think 1/8 of a cup will be about right. Okay, that looks about right. So now I'm going to pour it through the soil here. I'm going to do it slowly. I want you to do it slowly too. And we'll test your prediction about how easily the water goes through this soil, how much water the soil holds, and how fast it goes through the soil. You've got to pour it slowly so that it's going through the soil, not just through the paper. Then we do the same thing for the clay. I'm filling this about halfway. And I pour it very slowly through the clay. Is this taking a little more patience? Is this going slower? So you can try this too and notice, is the water going faster through one than the other? Well, look at that. I've still got quite a bit of water here in my clay, don't I? But I don't have any water sitting there in the one with the sand at this point. The one with the sand seems to have let a good bit of water go through. It looks like the clay holds water better and the sand lets water flow through more easily. Is that what you predicted? Whether that's what you predicted or not, we did just learn something about the soil, didn't we? Okay, next thing that we're going to try is we're going to test how well the two different soils handle nutrients, how they hold nutrients, sorry. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is how well the different types of soil hold nutrients. So nutrients are the things that are going to help plants to grow. Things like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, calcium, sulfur. Just like we take vitamins, the soil needs to have certain things in it to help the plants grow. All right, so we're going to do another setup to test that. So I'm going to move the ones where we just poured water through the soils over here. I'm going to get 2 more jars and 2 more funnels. If you want to reuse the ones that you already used, that's fine. I'm going to get some dry soil to put in these, so that's why I'm not washing out my jars and things right now. I'm just setting up the next one, but you can reuse your other setups. So I'm going to put in some more of the sand and the clay, and while I do, I want you to think about what do you predict about which of these soils will hold nutrients the best. Will it be the sand or will it be the clay that holds things like nitrogen and potassium and phosphorus that the plants need the best? All right, I've got some soil in here now, and I'm spreading it out and making the low place in the middle. Just like before, it looks like I need a little bit more soil in there so that it will go up the sides better. So spread it out, make the low place in the middle. Do the same thing with the clay. But we're not gonna put water through this time. We need to put something, some kind of liquid through our soil that's gonna represent, that's gonna be kind of like nutrients. It's gonna show the idea. Okay, I'm spreading out the clay and making the low place in the middle. So what do you say we use some Kool-Aid to represent or to show nutrients? Now, Kool-Aid is not a nutrient for plants, but it's going to help us show the idea. So when you do this, you have to use grape Kool-Aid. That's the flavor that we want to use because grape Kool-Aid is purple. And purple is made up of 2 colors, blue and red. So when I pour this through the 2 soils, one of them is going to not hold any of the dye that colors this purple. One of them is going to hang on to either the red or the blue in this purple. And so when I pour this through the soil, it's going to come out a different color than purple. It's either going to be more reddish or more bluish. So it's time for you to make your prediction. Which of these will hold nutrients better, or which of these, when I pour the Kool-Aid through, is going to change colors because it's going to hang on to some of the dye. All right? Which do you think will hold the nutrients better or change the color of my purple Kool-Aid? All right, so if you need to take a moment to set up your experiment, mix up some grape Kool-Aid and get ready, then pause the video and then turn it back on when you're ready to pour the Kool-Aid through. All right, you've got your setup ready and you've got your Kool-Aid, right? So we want to pour an equal amount of the grape Kool-Aid both into our sand and our clay. And I'm going to try using the same amount as last time and see if we get enough liquid down here in the jar to tell a difference. And if that doesn't work, I'll pour more through. But I'm going to start with about 1/8 of a cup. So I've got my 1/4 cup measuring cup and I fill it about half full. And I'm pouring it through the sand. Oh, one thing that will help is if you put a piece of white paper under your jars, it will make it easier to see the colors. Okay, we're pouring slowly like last time. Now we'll pour some through the clay, then we'll see if we need to use even more Kool-Aid. Okay, now I'm pouring Kool-Aid through the clay very slowly. All right, now as you look at the liquid that came through, looking both at the one here and the one you did at home, is the color the same? Did you get the same color from both the sand and the clay when it ran through? Like, I'm seeing a slight difference. I wish it was a bigger difference. Sometimes when I've done this in the past, I've had a bigger difference, but usually, like, the clay will hold some of the color in the Kool-Aid. So the Kool-Aid was purple, and purple is made up of both red and blue. And so it looks to me like this is a little more bluish or greenish, and this is a little more purplish blue, okay? And that's closer to the purple that we started with. It's not perfect. Sometimes things don't go just exactly perfectly when we do these experiments, but I'm hoping that when you did this at home and right now you are seeing at least some difference from the color that you started with. We started with purple, and this one has changed a little bit from what we started with. I'd say this one changed even more from what we started with. And so what's happening is the soil, the clay particles are holding on to some of the dye. Now, out in nature, the soil will hold on to some of the nutrients plants need, like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, calcium, and sulfur. And then they're there for the plant roots to get them. If the soil didn't hold on to them, then they would just wash away and the plant roots would not be able to get them as easily. So So did your prediction, did what you predicted turn out to be right? Well, even if it didn't, we learned something else about soil, didn't we? The next thing that we're going to think about is how well does soil hold up plants? That's called structural support. If it can hold up the stem of a plant real well, let's pretend that this green pencil is the stem of a plant, and maybe you can imagine a flower and some leaves here. And if the soil has good structural support, it should hold up the plant. And if it doesn't have very good structural support, the stem might fall over. I had a plant in my garden fall over during a heavy rain recently, and I was really sad about that. Okay, so again, we're gonna try this with some sand and clay. I've got the sandy silt here, and I've got another container of some pretty good clay right here. And we are gonna put pencils representing plant stems in each. So if you wanna do this at home, get a little container and fill it part way with some sand, and another one and fill it part way with some clay. And you can either use pencils, or you could use sticks, popsicle sticks, sticks you find outside. So if you want to go get those things right now, pause your video and then come back when you've got the stuff ready. Okay, we're gonna put these into our sand. Did you make your prediction yet? Did you predict which one is going to hold up the plant the best? Will it be the sand or will it be the clay that holds the plant up the best? Make your prediction now. All right, let's see if these stand up all by themselves. They do. So now we're going to very, very gently, as if we were not very strong, we're going to gently try to knock over the pencils and see which one is harder to knock over. Because if it's harder to knock over, then that soil is giving good support to the plant stems. Okay, so you want to very gently tap it. Okay, they both went a little ways. Ah, that one fell over. This one is harder to make it fall over. All right, so it looks like our clay provides better structural support and holds up plant stems better than the sand. All right. All right, now you can clean up all the stuff that you used if you've done this at home. Now you might think that from this activity that clay is your best soil for growing plants because it held the nutrients, it held the water, and it held up the plant stems. Well, actually, a mixture, there's some loam, some silty clay loam, a mixture of the sand, the silt, the clay, and even some organic matter. That's actually the best because you want the soil to be able to drain some like the sand does. You want it to be able to hold some nutrients like the clay does. You want it to have some structural support like the clay does. And the organic stuff made of dead animals like insects, dead plants like these leaves that turn the soil dark, that's also very good for making healthy soil to grow plants in. And different plants do better in different soils, so some of them, you know, can live in all different soils. I mean, we do find cactus and stuff living in just sandy soil in places, but the best for most plants is a mixture. Okay, now let's pause.
Soil is a very important part of our lives. It's where we grow our food, right? So, there are ways that people can protect the soil and water and the environment and improve plant growth when they farm or garden. We can cut down on erosion when wind or water carry soil away. If we prevent erosion, we keep the soil that plants need and we keep water and air cleaner too. We can build up the organic matter, like dead plants, and the nutrients in the soil. And we can protect living things that help plants or soil, like bees and tiny microbes like bacteria that help soil form. Here are some ways to do this. Use windbreaks, a line of trees at the edge of a field that slows down the wind so it won't blow soil away. Plant cover crops instead of leaving the ground bare after harvest. Leave parts of crops we don't use, like corn stalks, on the ground to protect the soil after harvest. Leave some trees, shrubs, and other plants next to streams to stop soil from washing into the water when it rains. Plow or till soil less so it doesn't form a hard crust or ruin the soil structure. Don't let cows eat all the grass and leave the ground bare. Rotate crops. For example, grow corn one season, then soybeans, and then wheat. Corn takes nitrogen out of the soil. Soybeans put nitrogen back in. Nitrogen is a nutrient that helps plants grow. Protect insects like bees that pollinate flowers by avoiding or using less chemicals that harm them. Some pesticides kill pollinators and microbes, tiny living things that make soil healthy. Thanks for watching.